Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. I still can't get over how funny it is to say Peter Dislike Show and to wave a dislike finger. When I die, I want my tombstone to look like this on the ground. I really do. And I want my tombstone to be made of something that is so heavily disliked by our society. Like, for example, if you look at all the elements on the periodic table and you look at how rare they are relative to their price, right? Um, Gold is way overvalued, right? If you take price times quantity, gold I think is among the highest among the list of elements. Even common elements like aluminum or copper or iron aren't so bad compared to gold. But what is really disliked right now, I believe the top three are bismuth, tellurium, and indium. So I want my tombstone. If I were to die today, I would want my tombstone. Bismuth and tellurium actually form a very strong compound, bismuth telluride. I want my tombstone to be made of that and to stick in the ground, because that's how I live my life, right? No matter what I do, just because of my difference in lifestyle, right? A lot of times. So, for example, at my last job at a tutoring center, I would people would recognize what they got out of my tutoring, but then they would hear about my difference in lifestyle, my difference in sexuality, or just how I entertain myself, right? So, for example, I'm not a big fan of the 4th of July, but I am a big fan of solar eclipses, lunar eclipses, and it's just not popular. And so, a lot of times, people just don't see my personal life is very important compared to somebody else who wants to take the 4th of July off, right? So, for example, last March, I so badly wanted to leave the Phoenix area for a weekend because Taylor Swift was going to be in Phoenix and I knew traffic was going to be a mess. And I knew I have a lot of anxiety problems. Going into a grocery store or a shopping center with all these Swifties of storming the place was it's just not my cup of tea. And so I so badly wanted to leave the Phoenix area. Now, imagine I would imagine that most of my colleagues, maybe not my boss because he was older, would really be up in arms hearing that I need to leave the area because Taylor Swift is here, right? And but see, here's the problem: you would never go up to your colleague and ask them, do they have depression? Do they take antidepressants? Do they have heart disease and take medication? Are they on chemotherapy? Nobody would go to the office and say that, right? But for some people, the need to avoid a Taylor Swift concert in town or the need to avoid certain foods, that is their chemotherapy, right? I know it sounds weird, but for some people, it really is. Get used to that idea. But unfortunately, we don't see it that way. Now, something I read on the news gave me a little bit of optimism. So, we've been having transitory inflation for 3 years. Now, a lot of Americans have been coping with it by substituting various things, but lately they've just been eating less. And I like it. I really do. Too many people. See, when I was when I was working on my PhD, obviously my friends and I were on tight budgets and we would talk about our budget, and people, the last thing people would refuse to do is to cut out any sort of food item. All food is essential. They would rather give up any sort of social activity. I actually think that's more essential than junk food, but to each their own. They would much rather do that. They would much rather live with 10 roommates, right, in a 2-bedroom apartment. And so they much rather do that. Oh my God, they need their Doritos, they need their Coca-Cola. It's food, it's essential. And some people literally think they'll die if they stop consuming that stuff. And I'm glad inflation is forcing people to think about that. See, I used to I I as a tutor, I sometimes work with students who claim that They have some kind of food desert environment, or their friends live in some kind of food desert environment. And I would often think about, well, why don't you just eat less? I mean, yeah, maybe your food choices aren't 100% optimal. And trying to get anybody to eat less is kind of like pulling an organ out of their body. Like they'd rather hear that they might have to give up their car. Dave Ramsey always tells people to sell their car, right? But he never tells people to give up their junk food, because I think even Dave Ramsey realizes that trying to take the Doritos out of people's mouths will literally be like pulling teeth. It really is sometimes. It really is. I've had I was working at a different college. I used to be more ambitious about pushing my agenda. I had students who had difficulty with transportation to the campus, couldn't afford their bus passes or whatnot, couldn't afford to put gas in the car. And then I would see them come into the classroom with bags and bags of Doritos, and I would point that out. Oh my God, that's the quickest way to hear somebody scream. It really is. It really is. It's so weird. But I'm glad a lot of Americans are waking up to the idea that maybe less is the answer. And so I like it. I like it. I hope we eat less. I hope we have sex less. I really do, because it will force us to open the other books in our lives. I really do. I'm not joking here. There's so much out there besides food, sex, besides all this garbage, going to Disney World, seeing Taylor Swift. There's so much more to life than that. I know I sound angry, because I really am. I want people to discover chemical element 119. I want people to discover an AI and solve the game of chess. And I want people to even just design a good board game to play. Right now, I'm programming an AI for the game of Mandela. Even if all you do is design a game like this to take your mind off of the inflating food prices, maybe design some art, right? Lately, I've been coloring, right? Maybe design some art, maybe. Seriously, less, and expand. I'm angry here. I wish Dave Ramsey would get this up in arms about food. See, Dave Ramsey should say, what'd you have for lunch today? Oh, a bag of Doritos, Coca-Cola, some beef jerky. Stop! I wish Dave Ramsey would ask people what they had for lunch. I really do. There's a lot of waste in there. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum, 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 bum.